They're through. They're through. They're through. Hey!
It was a year of unification, division, and a whole lot of nothing.
Funny guy! Right here!
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 events of 1990.
Mayor Marion Barry was still drawing cheers in his neighborhood, even after his arrest last night on charges of using crack.
For this list, we'll be looking at events from each half-decade from pop culture, natural disasters, medical breakthroughs, sports, and political happenings, based on their significance at the time and their lasting impact today. This is part of a series of videos spanning the decades.
A moment of history in the making. Noriega gone, Panama joyful, and ordeal come to an end.
Number 10. The debut of Seinfeld.
We've got some very exciting pilots for next season. We have one with a bright young comedian, Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of him.
Yes, there actually was a pilot made in 1989, but yada yada yada, Seinfeld officially became a series in May of 1990.
The second button literally makes or breaks the shirt. Look at it. It's too high. It's in no man's land. You look like you live with your mother. Are you through?
Eventually spawning 180 episodes across 9 seasons. The original show about nothing's first season was a scant 5 episodes, and that includes the dusty and mostly unloved pilot from the year prior.
And out is one of the single most enjoyable experiences of life. People talk about we should go out. This is what they're talking about.
Despite a terrible title, The Seinfeld Chronicles, Noah Lane, and Kramer being named Kessler,
You got any meat?
the brass at NBC believed the show had potential, and even canceled a Bob Hope special to fund Seinfeld's minuscule first season.
The man is in the car. The woman walks by the front of the car. He hunks the... This man is out of ideas.
However, things were much smoother for NBC's other new comedy, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which debuted in September of that same year.
Master William, walk this way. No.
Number 9. The Premiere of Goodfellas.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Starring Robert De Niro, Ray Liotta, and Joe Pesci, and directed by Martin Scorsese, Goodfellas racked up $46.8 million at the box office, and lots of F-words. And we're not talking funny.
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you. I make you laugh. I'm here to f***ing amuse you.
Over 300 F-bombs, that's about 2 f***s per minute, were dropped during the almost 2.5-hour film, with Pesci pulling the lever on half.
You only hold the whole f***ing block. You'll have to wind up with a big f***ing score, you motherfucker. And no f***ing see. You with your f***ing mouth.
Although the script went through 12 drafts, much of the final product was improvised, including the infamous funny how scene, and helped earn Pesci his Oscar for Best Supporting Actor.
How the f*** am I funny? What the f*** is so funny about me? Tell me. Tell me what's funny.
Alternative casting, meanwhile, could have included Tom Cruise as Henry Hill, Madonna as Karen Hill, and John Malkovich as Jimmy Conway.
You have to do the right thing. You have to go home to the family, you understand? You gotta go home, okay? Look at me. You gotta go home. Smarten up.
Number 8. The Manjar Bar Earthquake.
They've given up hope of finding survivors. Now just the long, painful task of clearing the rubble and of rebuilding the towns and villages.
Just after midnight local time, an earthquake measuring 7.4 in magnitude rocked northern Iran between the towns of Rudbar and Manjil on June 21, 1990. The quake was the largest recorded in the Caspian Sea region to that point, and ultimately left more than 50,000 dead, 60,000 injured, and 400,000 homeless. It was also felt as far away as Azerbaijan. Nearly 700 villages were destroyed, while 100,000 buildings fell. Many of those buildings were poorly welded, made of adobe or otherwise not up to modern code. So, damages totaled an estimated $8 billion.
Western doctors treating the injured and teaching local doctors at the same time.
The disaster triggered worldwide relief efforts, although Iran flatly refused aid from the nations of Israel and South Africa.
To stop such events repeating themselves with the same disastrous consequences, the Iranian government has called on the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, to draw up specifications for architects and engineers carrying out the reconstruction work.
Number 7. The Channel is officially connected.
It's not much to look at, this long, narrow corridor in the ground, but make no mistake about it. the Channel Tunnel is one of the engineering marvels of our time.
Although both halves of the Channel Tunnel, or Le Tunnel sous la Manche, were unofficially connected by a 2-inch hole on October 30th, it was not until December 1st, 1990, that the tunnel was officially connected. And the incident was captured by the media.
There's the handshake we've all been waiting for, Mr. Fag and Mr. Cosette.
French engineer Philippe Cosette and English engineer Graham Fagg formally linked the 23.5-mile underwater tunnel by bursting through their respective sides to share their first hello et bonjour. Work proved to be more difficult on the French side, where the clay-like chalk marl was harder and more brittle. And it continued until 1994, when the tunnel, which had begun construction in 1988, was finally opened.
31 million people a year, 1,000 cars an hour, now cross the English Channel from below.
Number 6. The WHO declassifies homosexuality as a mental disorder.
We are proud gay and lesbian people who are here to stake our claim for equal rights, which we do not have in this country and in the world.
Gay rights, or at least respect for the LGBT community, gained ground when the World Health Organization unclassified homosexuality as a mental disorder in 1990. LGBT-related conditions, such as gender dysphoria, did remain on the books, however, and although it came decades after similar decisions by the American Psychiatric Association and the American Psychological Association, the WHO's move was nonetheless important. Now accepted as just a natural variation of human sexual orientation, it meant that homosexuality was not treatable as a disease or disorder, and could not be cured. It's just a thing. Get used to it.
It's basically time that Sam Nunn understand we're here, we're queer, get used to it.
Number 5. The Hubble Space Telescope is launched.
And liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery with the Hubble Space Telescope, our window on the universe.
Launched on April 24, 1990, and deployed into orbit on the 25th, Hubble received its first bit of funding, a puny $36 million, from U.S. Congress in 1978.
Because the Hubble telescope is in orbit about 380 miles above the Earth, it can produce sharper images than can telescopes on the surface.
Budgeted at $400 million, the project eventually skyrocketed to a cost of $2.5 billion. Despite the costs, the telescope's operating software was barely finished for the launch, while a 1.3mm curvature error in the lens of the main null corrector made Hubble's imaging out of focus and effectively useless.
We're supposed to revolutionize astronomy. How is it that we can't focus this telescope? How is this even possible?
This was corrected, however, during the unit's first servicing in 1993 with the installation of the COSTAR system, which more or less gave Hubble glasses.
A job that was made easier because the telescope was designed to be repaired in space.
Meanwhile, things were smoother elsewhere in space, as the Voyager 1 space probe sent pictures of the entire solar system back to Earth in February of 1990. Number 4. The beginning of the end of the Soviet Union. While the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 may have set things in motion, 1990 was all but the end of the USSR. On January 1st, Ukrainian was reinstated as the official language of the Ukraine. But bigger changes in the Soviet Union were on the horizon, and not just the country's first McDonald's. On March 9th, Georgia declared sovereignty, followed by Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. Russia itself declared sovereignty on June 11th, and later elected Boris Yeltsin president.
Yeltsin was always a flamboyant leader. He ruled Russia from 1991 till 1999, overseeing the death of the Soviet Union and the birth of a democratic Russia.
While Uzbekistan, Moldova, Ukraine, Belarus, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Armenia, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzia all followed suit by the year's end. On December 31st, 1991, the USSR officially ceased to be.
The Union's 3 Slavic republics announced they are forming a separate Commonwealth of Independent States.
Number 3. The Invasion of Kuwait.
Most had driven the 80 miles from the Iraqi border in a push that began at 2 a.m.
At 2 a.m. local time on August 2, 1990, 100,000 Iraqi troops and 700 tanks began the invasion of Kuwait. Protesting what he felt was a market flooded by Kuwaiti oil, Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein annexed the nation and threatened to make Kuwait City a graveyard if anyone opposed. And oppose they did.
News of Iraqi atrocities soon began to leak out. There were stories of mass executions, rape, and torture.
The Soviet Union, such as it was, suspended arms supplies to Iraq, while the UN banned trade with the country on August 6th. The invasion, also called the Iraq-Kuwait War, ultimately triggered the Gulf War, codenamed Operation Desert Shield.
The Iraqi army didn't make a retreat at all. It was a headlong, panicky flight into disaster.
On November 29th, the UN ordered Iraq to vacate by January 15, 1991, or face war. And since Saddam refused, Operation Desert Storm began shortly thereafter in defense of Saudi Arabia.
But it is a time of pride. Pride in our troops, pride in the friends who stood with us in the crisis, pride in our nation, and the people whose strength and resolve made victory quick.
Number 2. The release of Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela woke up to freedom this morning in the spectacular surroundings of Bishop's Court.
After 27 years, Nelson Mandela was unconditionally released from prison. In 1962, he was sentenced to life in prison in the Rivonia trial after being convicted of conspiracy to overthrow the state.
His release meant probably more to the whole world than to the man himself.
After an international campaign, Mandela was the last African National Congress prisoner to be released, following a positive meeting with South African President F.W. de Klerk in December of 1989. On the day of Mandela's release, thousands lined the 40-mile route from Victor Verster prison to Cape Town, and thousands more gathered as he spoke at City Hall. Mandela's release marked the beginning of a new era for racially tense South Africa and led to the unbanning of the ANC.
I greet you all in the name of peace, democracy, and freedom for all.
Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are a few honorable mentions.
Ken Farrar has overheard McEnroe swearing.
Code violation, verbal abuse, default, Mr. McEnroe.
Noriega gave up after a day of dramatic protests in Panama. Thousands of Panamanians surrounded the Vatican embassy, chanting "assassin" and "no mercy."
Who doesn't want Hughes? Well, why not, I wonder? Because of the lack of clarity on his position with respect to freedom of choice? Is that why, I wonder?
Girl, you know it's true. The truth is, Milli Vanilli were living a lie by pretending to sing when they did not.
Today morning, the loss of guitarist Stevie Ray Vaughan. The Grammy Award winner died in a helicopter accident yesterday.
Number 1. German Reunification.
Some months ago there was a wall exactly on this standing, and now it's through the way, and this is great to look.
With the fall of the Berlin Wall, the imminent reunion of East and West Germany seemed inevitable.
Over 1 million people here celebrating a day that they never thought would come. A day in which Germany became one country again.
Physically and ideologically divided following World War II, the path to unification began on November 28, 1989, when it was proposed by West German Chancellor Helmut Kohl. On March 18, 1990, East Germany held its own free elections and voted in favor of reuniting.
The new flag of Germany was raised above Berlin, reinstated as the country's capital.
They made news again on April 12th, when the nation apologized to Jews worldwide for the Holocaust. German economies merged on July 1st, while on August 31st, against some international concerns, the German Reunification Treaty was signed and would go into effect on October 3rd. Do you agree with our list? What do you think is the most important event from 1990? For more smack-talking top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
Get the f*** out of here, Tommy.
You mother... I almost had him. You stuttering prick, yeah.